Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I have a very fun video for you. We're going to be doing Southern soups. I am so excited about that. I love all things Southern, so I'm super glad to be doing this video with you guys. If you love all things Southern, please give me a thumbs up. And I hope these are going to be some new meals for you and your family that will give you inspiration for meals this week. So go ahead and grab your big old soup bucket and let's get started. First, we're going to be starting on this beautiful looking corn chowder. So to this pan, I'm going to need about 5 to 6 slices of bacon that I'm just going to fry up. It might be easier if you like to cut it first and then kind of fry it. I usually just do it this way and then cut it up later, or I use a knife to cut it up, something like that. And then once it's done, I'm just going to toss this to the side, and I'm going to use most of that grease in this pan. This is my soup pan. I desperately need a Dutch pan, y'all. Oh, I so desperately want one. But here in my soup pan, I'm just going to take half a cup of celery, half a cup of carrots, and then 1/4 a cup of onions. And in that bacon grease, I'm just going to let it cook. And if you need to, you can add in more bacon grease or oil to it just so all of your vegetables are nice and soaked through and that they're getting cooked nice and evenly. Into my soup pan, I'm going to add in about 1.5 tablespoons of garlic, and then I'm just going to go ahead and give that another good stir. Once that has cooked for about 1 to 2 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and add in 1/4 a cup of flour and just get that well combined, get the flour all mixed through properly, make sure there's no clumps or anything like that. Once the flour is all mixed through, I'm going to go ahead and add in 4 cups of chicken broth. Now I do use my own chicken bouillon cubes with some water, and I just put that in my soup. I'm going to give that another good stir, and then I'm going to add in some heavy whipping cream after that's stirred through. I'm going to add 2 cups of heavy whipping cream and give that another good stir, and then I'm going to add in my corn. I'm actually going to need quite a bit of corn. I'm going to need 4 cups of corn. I just did some frozen corn here, and then I'm going to add in about 3 pounds of tomatoes. That'd be gross. Ew, not tomatoes. I'm going to want potatoes in here, and I'm going to give that another good stir, and then I'm going to add in just a little bit of seasoning. So I'm actually going to add in some cayenne pepper, which is kind of weird, but it's going to give it just a little bit of a kick. I put in about 1/8 of a teaspoon, so just like a dash of it, and then I'm going to add in about 1/4 of a teaspoon of Italian spices. And then I'm going to add in just a little bit of pepper. I'm only going to add in maybe close to about 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper. And then I'm going to give that another good stir. Once that is all stirred through and you get all the spices combined, then we're just going to leave this on the pot here. We're going to leave this on the burner for maybe 15 minutes just to let everything kind of get thicken up and get all stirred through and get cooked through properly. And then after it has been cooking for maybe 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to go ahead and add in our bacon and add in that wonderful, beautiful flavor that bacon adds. And we're going to give it a good stir, and that's it. That is all that we're going to do for this meal, and it is ready to devour. This meal is loaded in so many different vegetables, so many different nutrients that you are going to leave being so full, and you're going to leave being so happy because this meal is so delicious. You can serve it with some bread like I did. I will show you how to make this homemade bread that you see here, but this meal would be great with a salad or with some cornbread, something like that. This meal is so hearty and delicious. You're going to want to make this meal over and over again. Next, we're going to be making the easiest chicken noodle soup you will ever make in your whole entire life. It is so easy. First, you're going to need about 5 cups of water, and then you're going to put in 10 ounces of these egg noodles. You can use whatever type of egg noodles you want. I just used these wide egg noodles, and I'm going to start cooking those, and then I kind of remembered, oh, I forgot my broth, my bouillon cubes to it. So that's what I'm putting in here is just some crushed bouillon cubes. And then I'm going to give that another good stir. And then after it has been cooked through and it starts boiling, then your egg noodles are done, and you're going to add in 2 cans of cream of chicken soup to it and give it another good stir. And while that is all cooking, if you wanted to start making your chicken, or if you wanted to use some rotisserie chicken, or if you wanted to use some canned chicken, that's completely up to you. While this was cooking, I did go ahead and cook up some chicken thighs. So that's what I'm adding in here. I have about 2 cups of chicken thighs that I went ahead and added to this. And then I'm just going to add in some parsley, and that is it. I think I added probably 1 to 2 tablespoons of parsley. I like tons of parsley in my chicken noodle soup. And then I'm going to give that another good stir. And then the only other thing that I'm going to be adding to this is some sour cream. I did go ahead and add in a whole cup of sour cream to this meal. And that was it. I go ahead and stir it up. And after it started simmering on the pot, then it was ready to eat. And I'm telling you, this was so creamy, so absolutely delicious. You guys are going to love it. I know there's not a lot of ingredients to it, and don't be skeptical of it, but it is so simple. We had this for lunch on a Sunday after church, and it was so easy to put together. Next, we're going to be making these chicken and dumpling soup, and to my soup pot, I'm just going to add 1/4 cup of butter and just let that melt down. While that's cooking, I'm just finishing up prepping my vegetables. So, and you definitely do not want to wait very long so your butter does not brown. That I do not like it when my butter browns, but anyways, I'm going to add in 3 stalks of celery and 1/2 cup or 3 medium-sized carrots, and then I chopped up about a really small onion. I think I used all of that whole onion there, and I'm just going to mix that through. And we're going to cook down these vegetables and make sure that it's getting cooked through and that they're getting sauteed properly. And then once they are good and cooked through, I'm going to go ahead and add in my flour. I do add in 1/2 cup of flour. I know that seems like a lot of flour, but you're really got to trust the process here. Give that another good stir. Make sure that flour is good and cooked through here, and just really spread throughout all those vegetables. While this was cooking, I did go ahead and start my chicken. I'm going to need about 2 cups of chicken here. If you want to use canned chicken or rotisserie chicken, definitely want to get that ready here. But now to my soup pot, I'm going to add in 8 cups of chicken broth. And then once that's stirred through, I'm going to go ahead and add in my chicken. I have about 2 cups of cubed cooked chicken here that I had just recently cooked up, and that I seasoned with some salt and pepper. And here I'm going to add in 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, and then I'm going to add in my seasoning. So I have 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning here. And then I'm going to do some garlic powder. And then I'm going to do some onion powder as well. And actually, these are all 1 teaspoon each. That is 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. I'm also going to put in some salt, another teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to give that a good stir, get that all combined and mixed through properly. And you definitely want all of these seasonings in here, because I'm telling you, this meal is so delicious. I had a hard time deciding between this meal and the next meal that I'm going to show you which one was my favorite. I gave this to my husband for lunch one day, and he came home and was like, man, that soup was really, really good. I'm like, I know, I know. I'm also, now that all that's combined, I'm actually going to put in this, and I'll link it in the description box what the recipe is for this dumpling recipe. But it's just Bisquick and milk and then some Italian seasoning, and then I'm just kind of scooping this into this pot with a cookie scoop, and then I'm going to put the lid on. I'm going to let this simmer for about 10 minutes. Just leave the lid on for a good 10 minutes, and you take it off and everything is so much more creamy. You can also chop up these dumplings to be smaller if you want to, but I'm telling you, this meal was so delicious. Everybody in my family absolutely loved it. All the seasonings that we used for this were absolutely divine. It made this meal so flavorful. I did have some more of that bread left over, so we did eat some of that with it. Next, I'm going to be making this absolutely delicious creamy potato soup, and to my soup pot, I'm going to put in about 3 tablespoons of butter, and yes, I kind of forgot about it because I was chopping up the vegetables here. But I'm going to put in about half a cup of celery, half a cup of carrots, and then about a cup of onions here, and I'm going to give that a good stir and just let this cook in the butter here. Sometimes I do have to add in more butter or oil or bacon grease, whatever I choose to use at that time. But I'm just going to let this kind of cook on the heat for about 5 to 8 minutes just to make sure everything's getting cooked down properly. And then once everything's getting cooked down, or it is cooked down, I'm going to go ahead and add in some garlic. So I put in probably 2 tablespoons of garlic here. I never measure, I just kind of guesstimate on the garlic there. I'm going to let that cook on the pot for about 5 minutes, and then while that's cooking, I did prep my potatoes. It says that I need 8 potatoes for this meal, for this recipe, and as I'm putting in the pot, I'm thinking, yep, definitely needed that bigger soup pot like I thought I would need at the beginning. I thought that I could get by with just this pan right here, but no. So as I'm putting it all in here, I'm thinking, you know, I'm gonna have to transport it, but anyways, you live and you learn for sure. And now once everything is in this pot, where what it should have been in the first place, I'm going to go ahead and add in my chicken broth. So I'm just going to go ahead and I add in 4 cups at first, but you just want enough water to completely cover all of your potatoes. So I think I put pretty close to 5 cups of water in there, or chicken broth, I'm sorry. And while that's cooking to this little saucepan that I have right here, I'm going to melt some butter. I have 3 tablespoons of butter that I melted, and then I added 3 tablespoons of flour, got that mixed through, and here I'm just going to add in some, you can either use half and half or you can use heavy whipping cream, just whatever is your preference. I always like to use half and half. It's just going to make my soups more creamy and more delicious. I love the flavor of heavy whipping cream, and I'm slowly just adding this in here and letting it get thicker and thicker. And when it's to the consistency that I like, it's the thickness that I like, I'm going to go ahead and transport it to my pan. As long as all my potatoes are nice and tender, everything is ready for that flour mixture. So I'm going to go ahead and basically kind of test it here, make sure the potatoes are nice and cooked through. And then I'm actually just going to get my small saucepan and I'm just going to plop it in there. Okay, and I'm going to let this stir in this pot for, I don't know, just maybe a couple minutes or so. Just give it a really good stir, make sure everything's combined properly. And then I'm going to let this stay on the burner and let it simmer for about another 5 more minutes just to make sure everything is getting nice and thick, because you want a nice, thick, creamy potato soup. Now, this isn't going to be super thick potato soup, but You definitely want it to be a lot thicker. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in a third cup of, you can use like fresh kale or you can use frozen. I just use this frozen that I put in that little measuring cup here. I'm going to give that another good stir, and once everything is nice and thick, that is it. This meal is done. It is so creamy, so delicious, and all of my family enjoyed this meal so much. My daughter wanted her to take it to school the next day for her lunch. She loved it that much. And then I did want to go ahead and show you how to make this bread recipe that I have with pretty much all of my soups. You can see how beautiful this bread is, and it is so sweet. It is so fluffy. You're really going to want to make this bread. To my stand-up mixer, I'm going to take 1/4 cup of warm water. You want to make sure it's warm, about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I'm going to put that in the saucepan. I'm going to put that in that big bowl mixer. And I'm actually going to add in some ginger. I know that kind of seems weird, but you definitely want to add in maybe 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. Just barely put any ginger in there. And then a whole packet of active yeast. And then I'm just kind of stirring that up just to get it combined and mixed through. And I'm going to let that foam up for about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to take 1 teaspoon of salt and then 2 cups of really warm milk, about the same temperature, 110 degrees. Put that in the mixer as well. And then actually I'm going to use 1/3 cup of honey. And then we're just going to kind of stir this through a little bit just to kind of get all those ingredients combined. Once they're combined, I'm going to start adding some flour. My total flour that I'm going to need for this recipe is 6 cups, but here I'm just putting in half of it right now. I'm putting in about 3 cups of flour. Just going to get that mixed through. And then, I don't know, it's probably about 5 minutes that's going to need to stir through. And then I'm just going to scrape the sides here and get all that excess flour off. And then I'm actually going to be adding some butter. I'm going to use about 1/4 cup of butter here. It has to be melted first though. I'm going to add that to this mixer here, and then I am going to let this mix until it is completely mixed through. All the butter is completely combined. Once all the butter is completely combined, I'm going to go ahead and add in the rest of that flour that we have. So I'm going to add in, I don't do all of it at once. I probably add in another 1.5 cups, get that stirred through, and then I will add the other half of that flour once it's all ready, after everything's stirred through properly. Now that everything is stirred through, I am just going to add just a little bit of flour at a time just to make sure that it is to the stickiness that we want. I don't want it to be too sticky. I want it to be able that I can work with it, but it doesn't have to be completely like one solid piece of bread here. It can be just a teeny bit sticky. You want it to where when it rises, it's not going to be unbearable to, work with and to form. So here I'm just going to leave it in this mixer here. I don't want to make any more dishes than I have to, and I'm just going to put some saran wrap on top, and I'm going to put a towel on top of that, and I'm going to let this sit and let it double in size. So I let this double in size. It takes about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, just depends on how big you want it to rise. Once it has doubled in size, I am going to punch it down and just get it out of this bowl. I'm going to put it on my countertop, and I'm going to form it into some loaf pans. And I'm going to divide this in half just to make it as even as possible. You can use a scale just to make it super even, make sure it's 100% even. I just kind of eyeball it here and cut this in half as best as I can, and no, my knife is not cutting the countertop. It's fine. And I'm just going to form this into some loaves here, and then I'm actually going to let this sit out again for about another 45 minutes. Once the 45 minutes is up, then we are finally ready to put it into the oven. From the time that you start this to the time that you finish, it takes about 4 hours. It does take a little bit longer than any other type of breads or rolls or anything like that, but the reward is definitely beautiful. This bread is so delicious. My family asked for me to make it. I have friends that ask for me to make it. They just absolutely love it. And I know it's because of the honey in it that makes it so sweet and delicious. We're also going to put some saran wrap on this as well and just kind of let it stay out here, and I'm going to let it double in size as well. It takes about 45 minutes. Sometimes I get impatient and I start cooking it at 30 minutes, but I try to let it rise for 45 minutes. That way it's going to be really tall, it's going to be really fluffy, and that way you're not going to have any problems of it being doughy in the middle. And then I'm going to let this cook in my oven at 325 for 30 minutes, and here is the result. It is absolutely beautiful. This bread is so good. You're really going to want to try this. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you have some inspiration this winter and fall season for some absolutely delicious soups. And subscribe if you haven't already. I have more videos just like this linked below. I'll see you in the next one.